Lesson 8-6, Quadratic Equations. Our essential question is, how do you factor a quadratic? We have two new vocab words. The first one is quadratic equation in standard form. What that looks like is similar to standard form for a linear equation, only because it's a quadratic, you see an exponent of 2, so it's a second degree equation. So instead of linear, it's quadratic because of the exponent 2 being the highest degree. So standard form is a specific order. Basically, you want to make sure that all of your terms are on one side of your equation, and you have to have a 0 on one side. So must be equal to 0. Whether the 0 is on the right or the left-hand side doesn't matter. And then since it's equal to 0 on one side, we can use the second vocab word, zero product property. Remember that product is the answer to a multiplication question or a multiplication problem. So the zero product property says that if the product is 0, so think about that, if the answer to a multiplication problem is 0, then one of the things that you are multiplying has to be 0. That's the only way to get an answer of 0 when you're multiplying. So if A times B is equal to 0, then A equals 0 or B equals 0, or both, because 0 times 0 would also equal 0. So the only way to get 0 when you're multiplying two things together is if one or both of the things you're multiplying were equal to 0 in the first place. Okay, before we start our factoring, I am going to just review with you FOIL, because factoring reverses FOIL. So if you examine your answer to FOIL, I think it's going to help you figure out how to factor. So if we FOIL, the first product, x times x, is x squared. Then the outside product, x times 2, is 2x. The inside product, 3 times x, is 3x. And last, 3 times 2 is 6. Then we can combine together the like terms to get our answer, x squared plus 5x plus 6. So what I want you to focus on is what part of the binomials gave us each of these terms in our answer. So our first product right here, the x times x, gave us the first term in our trinomial. Then,
a reminder to all staff, you can bring Cougar Cash down to the office. Please bring all your Cougar Cash down to the office. Thank you.
the last product, 3 times 2, gives us the last term. So last term gives us the plus 6. First term gives us the x squared. Then it's the outsides and insides added together. The outside plus the inside, this part, that gives us the middle term. So there's two things that combine to give us the middle. So we're going to use that information to try to help us figure out how to start with the trinomial and end with the two binomial factors. So factoring reverses FOIL. So my example here, x squared plus 9x plus 20, I'm going to write the letters up at the top for FOIL. First product has to give me x squared. So if I draw my binomials, that first product, right here, the first product has to give me x squared. So the only way that works is x times x. The last product, so from here to here, has to give me 20. So I need a product of 20, but I also need these other two when we add these together. So this one and this one, when I add them together, I have to have a sum of 9. So I need a sum of 9. So product of 20 to get that last term 20. Sum of 9 to get the two that add together to give me the 9. So now you just need to think about numbers. 20, 1 times 20 is 20, 2 times 10 is 20, so is 4 times 5. The one that gives me the sum that I am looking for, because I need the sum of 9, would be 4 and 5. So I can fill in positive 4 and positive 5. And if I FOIL this, I will see that I've got the correct answer. So first product, x squared. Outside product, 5x. Inside, 4x. And last, 20. So the two terms that are alike do add up to give me 9x. So I have correctly factored my trinomial. So my answer is x plus 4 times x plus 5. Okay, the next problem, we'll use the same process here. So my first product is x squared. So that means that in my binomials, I have to start with x times x. That's the only way that we're going to get that product, x squared. Then I move over to my 12. My last product has to equal 12. So product has to be 12. And the sum of the outside and the inside has to be negative 8. Sum, negative 8. Okay. So, product of 12. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. And the sum has to be a negative 8. So you might be thinking, how do we get a negative? Well, a negative times a negative is positive. So I need negatives on all of these. A negative times a negative is a positive. And to get a sum that's negative, a product that's positive, both of my numbers will have to be negative. So the one that adds up to give me the negative 8 that I need, that is going to be negative 2 and negative 6. So now I can fill those in my binomials. So negative 2 and negative 6. And then I can check first product, x squared, outside, negative 6x, inside, negative 2x, last, positive 12. So the outside and inside add together to give me negative 8. I have factored correctly. So this one is x minus 2 times x minus 6. You can always FOIL to check and make sure that you have factored correctly. This third example for factoring, I'm going to have to switch the order of the numbers or the terms around because it's not in standard form. So first I need x squared, then I need minus 7x, and then minus 18. Now, first term, x squared. So again, x times x is my first term. Next, my last term is negative 18. So my last product has to be negative 18. So product negative 18. And then my sum, outside plus inside. So outside plus inside has to be negative 7. So what multiplies to give me negative 18? Negative 1 times 18, negative 2 times 9, negative 3 times 6, negative 6 times 3, negative 9 times 2, and negative 18 times 1. It makes a difference where you put the negative sign because that will change the sign on your sum. So because I need my sum to be negative 7, it's this one, negative 9 plus 2. So negative 9 and positive 2. So if I FOIL it, I get x squared plus 2x minus 9x minus 18. And adding together my two like terms would give me negative 7x. So x minus 9 times x plus 2. One more of these before we do zero product property problems. So again, I need these in order, x squared, then the plus 2x minus 15. So my first product, x squared, so x times x. My last product, negative 15, so I need a product of negative 15. And then my sum has to be 2, positive 2. So negative 1 times 15, negative 3 times 5, negative 5 times 3, negative 15 times 1. If you've got the hang of this, you don't have to write all of these down. You might be able to figure out the factors on your first try. So my factors are negative 3 and positive 5. So now I can FOIL this to check. X times x is x squared. X times 5, 5x. Negative 3x. And then negative 15. So my two terms in the middle, if I add them together, I get positive 2. So x minus 3 times x plus 5. Okay, now on the last slide, you notice that these have an equal sign, so that makes them equations. So remember, when you solve an equation, you want your answer to be x equals, if the variable in the equation is x. So we are going to factor this first. So I've got the hang of this factoring. I need a product of negative 18. I need a sum of 3. So negative 18 and 3. So I can stop right here. My sum of 3. So x squared means that my binomials start with x times x. And I need negative 3 and positive 6. So if I FOIL this, I get x squared plus 6x minus 3x minus 18. And then if I combine together the two terms in the middle, I do get 3x. So I factored it correctly. Now comes the new part. Remember the zero product property, we said that if the answer is 0, then one of the things you were multiplying has to equal 0. So I'm going to set the first one equal to 0. So this one, x minus 3, set it equal to 0, and solve it. And you get the solution, x equals 3. Then I can set the second one equal to 0 and solve it. So I would subtract 6. So x equals negative 6. So my two solutions, my two answers are x equals 3 or x equals negative 6. So those are the two numbers that when you plug them in this quadratic on the left-hand side, you would get 0 for your answer. So the zero product property, you factor first, then you set each of your binomials equal to 0, and you solve it. Okay, our last one, I need to have 0 on one side of my equation. So in order to do that, I will subtract 27 on both sides. So x squared plus 6x minus 27 equals 0. And then I'll factor this. So I need a product of negative 27 and a sum of 6. So negative 1 times 27, negative 3 times 9, that's the one that works right there. That would give me a sum of 6. So x minus 3 and x plus 9. If I FOIL that, x squared plus 9x minus 3x minus 27. Combining these two like terms in the middle gives me positive 6x. So now I can just solve my two binomials by setting them equal to 0, and I'll have my solution. So x minus 3 equals 0. Add 3 on each side, and x equals 3. X plus 9 equals 0. Subtract 9 on each side, and x equals negative 9. And then I can put the or in the middle, because it could be one or the other, or both of them. So x equals 3, or x equals negative 9. If you can do that step in your head, that's fine. Make sure, though, that you show your binomials, you show your factors. You should not look at the equation at the beginning and just try to figure out what x is equal to. You should be able to write a summary now, answering your essential question. Make sure that you use complete sentences.